In 40 states and the District of Columbia, there are currently educator evaluation policies in place that require the incorporation of some type of student learning data into educators' evaluations. These policies are still pretty new, and it would be hard to overstate the seismic shift or the sea change that they represent in teacher evaluation policy, but also this concept of teacher accountability specifically. And because these policies are still new, there isn't a whole lot of research that talks about how are they playing out in the field and what are the impacts, other intended or unintended, of these policies. And so that's what this study is really about. It looks at educators in North Carolina to gauge their perceptions of the use of, in North Carolina, value added for educator evaluation, also what they perceive as the burgeoning effects of these new-ish policies. 206 teachers completed a mixed methods survey, and the psychometric properties of the survey are discussed in the article. And essentially, what the key findings are that teachers do not like being evaluated through value add, and that might not be terribly surprising. But what's interesting is, in general, the vast majority of the teachers in the study felt that they should be held accountable for student learning. But as you ask more and more specific questions about the measures used to do that, teacher resistance to the idea increases. So for example, very few teachers are supportive of the use of value added specifically in their evaluations, even though the vast majority of teachers believe they should be held accountable for student learning. So I think that's an interesting finding. What's perhaps more interesting is that of the teachers who took the survey who had previously received value-added data versus those who had not, the ones who had previously received value-added data were significantly more opposed to its use, were significantly more likely to feel that it was unfair, and also that the credibility, the validity of the data were suspect. And, which is perhaps most disconcerting, the folks who had previously received this value-added data in the past were significantly more likely to believe that it would not lead to the greater equity and distribution of quality teachers, and that teachers would avoid working with certain students and avoid teaching at certain schools because of value-added data. Respondents perceived 5 general themes of the effects that they feel that they're seeing as a function of North Carolina's teacher evaluation policy. The first one is that they feel that teachers are increasingly teaching to the test and gaming the system. Second, that teachers are increasingly leaving the field, especially in terms of early retirements. Third, that, as I said earlier, some teachers are avoiding working with certain students and avoiding working at certain schools as a function of where they perceive their value-added data will be higher or lower. And fourth, that educators in general feel an increase in stress, pressure, and anxiety. And that's interesting because those were not constructs that were specifically surveyed in the instrument. However, in the open-ended items, these were very, very palpable, very compelling theme in the qualitative data from the survey. And then fifth, teachers in general feel like there's a shift away from teacher collaboration and more towards teacher competition. So based on these findings, I have put forward in the paper 5 suggested mid-course policy corrections to increase the sufficiency, both in terms of quantity and quality, of professional development about value-added, specifically in the way that student growth measures are used in educator evaluations more broadly. Second, I recommend a temporary moratorium on the use of value-added as a high-stakes accountability tool for teachers, which interestingly is a recommendation that has also been put forward by the American Statistical Association, the Gates Foundation, and ASCD. Third, I believe that value-added should not be used as a calculable part of a teacher's evaluation, but rather as a screener to identify teachers who may need further scrutiny or support. And that's actually a recommendation that's been made by other value-added experts. Fourth, while there's no value-added model that's going to perfectly account for all of the possible factors that could influence student test scores, which are the basis of value-added models, it does seem to be the case that models that can do the following would be best for use by states. And those are models that can account for the non-random sorting of students, that can also account for students who are multiple grade levels below their current grade in achievement, also students who are English language learners and students with exceptionalities. And fifth, to implement incentives to draw teachers to schools that are perceived as most challenging and to work with students who are perceived as most challenging. Finally, I think that we as researchers, policymakers, and practitioners need to rethink the theory of action that underpins these teacher accountability policies. And namely, that is that these policies can help reform education to improve the quality of teachers and the equitable distribution of teachers across schools. Because if those are indeed our goals, these data suggest that the current teacher accountability policies are not moving us towards those goals and may in fact be moving us away from those goals. So I think that that's definitely something that needs further attention by researchers, by policymakers, and by practitioners. Thank you.